The Ataturk Olympic Stadium, an arena built for a sporting event that Turkey never hosted. They built the stadium in the belief that Istanbul would be chosen to host the 2008 Olympic Games. They lost to Beijing that time around, and in fact they have bid to host plenty more Olympics and European Championships too. From the 2000 Summer Olympics to the 2020 Summer Olympics, and from Euro 2008 to Euro 2028, Turkey has failed to secure their hope of hosting a major international sporting event. Until now, Turkey and their co-host Italy will be the hosts of Euro 2032. This stadium that opened in 2003 will finally be used for hosting an international tournament. But why was this so important to Turkey to host a major tournament? Why were their previous 11 attempts unsuccessful, and how did they finally get it right? Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we explore the art of the bid, how Turkey's pursuit finally paid off. Our story begins in 1989 when Nurettin Sözen came to power as mayor of Istanbul. One of his first acts in power was to send a letter to the president expressing his intent for Istanbul to be a future candidate city for the Olympics. For him, there were a few motivations to bring the games to his city. Firstly, he believed his city was worthy of staging what he believes is the greatest event on earth. He also believed that the Olympics would bring more recognition to Turkey, and lastly that the legacy of hosting would greatly boost both societal and technological advancements. The president agreed with his assessment, and they began to attempt to start to swoon the International Olympic Committee ahead of a bid for the 2000 Summer Olympics. Let's meet where the continents meet was the official mantra of Turkey's 2000 Olympic Games run. Plans for the creation of an Olympic stadium were being developed. Turkey soon sought to host other championships in 1993 to improve their operational and organisational experience with the arrival of the European Youth Aquatics. The nation had further sought for Istanbul to be included on the International Association of Athletic Federations 1993 schedule, but were left off, damaging their candidacy in the process. Ultimately, when the city selection began, Turkey were knocked out in the first round, receiving just 7 votes out of a possible 89. Despite the bid seeming well-intentioned, issues around sports venues and the transport infrastructure were called into question. Some Olympic Committee members took it a step further too when they suggested that perhaps Istanbul was just trying to garner some publicity for their city. Nevertheless, they had been thwarted at their first attempt. Dusting themselves down, Istanbul pushed forward with a second bid in 1997 for the 2004 Summer Olympic Games. Search for land to develop an Olympic park was hot on the agenda. Ahead of its candidacy, Istanbul hosted Habitat 2, a United Nations conference on how humans can evolve alongside their environment. It was the largest event ever hosted in the city and gave credence to their candidacy. However, once again, Istanbul fell short, with Athens in Greece being chosen this time around. The major reason yet again was the lack of sports facilities in the city. At the time, Istanbul had just 369 sports venues compared to the 2,400 that was being asked of them. Once again though, undeterred, Istanbul pushed for the 2008 Summer Olympics. They sought to quickly address their lack of sports facilities and experience in hosting large-scale events. The imminent completion of the Ataturk Olympic Stadium was due to be done in 2001. This saw both the Olympic Stadium and the Olympic Park ready to go, which certainly boosted their bid. And this time they passed through the first round and were down to the final 5 cities alongside Beijing, Osaka, Paris and Toronto. Again though, Turkey's major city came up short, with the fewest hotel rooms of the 5 by some distance, and concerns over traffic congestion and therefore pollution. They were once again rejected, albeit this time they had made major advances towards their overarching goal. It was at this time too where bidding for the European Championships had commenced in Turkey. As attempts to host the Olympics appeared to be progressing, the rest of Turkey turned their attention towards hosting the European Championships for the first time. The first attempt at this was for Euro 2008, except this time they wasn't going it alone, they were applying to host co-jointly with Greece. Now, Greek-Turkish relations have been at odds for most of modern history, and this nearly tipped over into direct conflict in 1996. but as relations improved, the two nations saw fit to apply together, which would be a monumental step towards peace that was sadly short-lived. In the end though, the bid wasn't to be. After violence marred the UEFA Cup meeting between Turkey's Fenerbahce and Greece's Panathinaikos, which resulted in yogurt being thrown over both nations' foreign ministers, concerns over civil unrest were more than fair. Coupled with a great deal of work to do in stadiums in both nations, the bid ultimately would not come to pass. The nation though quickly followed up its endeavours to host Euro 2012, but this time as a sole entity. This is not to say that Greece gave up their aspirations either, as they also applied once again as a solo nation. In the end though, both nations were eliminated in round 1. Turkey's logistical struggles hosting the 2005 Champions League final were evident during the candidacy and is likely to have played a major role in the failure to win the bid. At this stage, it had been 5 bids, 5 failures for Turkey. The dream to welcome the world to their nation was still a desirable one, but for now, an unfulfilled one. For Euro 2016, Turkey came again, this time proclaiming in a speech to UEFA delegates that they had done their homework after previous failed bids, and President Erdogan stated that we are passionate, we are committed, and we are ready. Competition was rife though, as both France and Italy were in the running for this tournament. Promises of great infrastructure advances were forthcoming, and Turkey looked to utilise its cultural differences as opposed to assimilate into a shared European ideology. When voting came around, Turkey's bid had gained momentum and ended up in the final runoff between themselves and France. However, controversy soared as France beat Turkey by 7 votes to 6 when it was expected Turkey was going to win. Just before the vote, UEFA President Michel Platini introduced French President Nicolas Sarkozy to every delegate, which appeared to have swung the pendulum towards the French. Additionally, former French player Marc Planas stated in an interview that he had learned about the decision a day before voting had been announced, which suggested foul play was at hand. When Platini was questioned on the fact that when Blatter was in charge of FIFA, Switzerland were awarded Euro 2008, and now Platini was in charge of UEFA, France had won for Euro 2016, he answered and said when there is a Turkish president, then you could hope. It all added up to shady, but nonetheless, Turkey had to concede defeat. Let's once more head back to Turkey's attempts to host the Olympics. 2012 was the next targets in their sights. Efforts to host these games were boosted as this was the first attempted bid to host the games in which the Ataturk Olympic Stadium had already been built. It signalled strong intent from Turkey to host the games, something that the International Olympic Committee appreciated. Further infrastructure building had commenced too in an effort to address the city's traffic problems. However, a significant point of contention between the government and the IOC was the division of funding between the European and the Asian sides of Istanbul. The IOC favoured building on the European side almost exclusively due to convenience and less travel time between events. However, the government was keen to link both sides collectively, as that was a major facet of the bid, where the continents meet. A side benefit was the opportunity to level the playing fields on both sides to have equal infrastructure. Ultimately though, this is where the bid came undone for Istanbul once again and added to their growing list of failures. With Turkey conceding for the 2016 Olympics that it was never likely that 2 European cities were going to get it in a row, they turned their attention instead towards 2020. Hasan Arat, who was overseeing Istanbul's bid, was optimistic given the increased number of sports venues and infrastructure that had been created since Turkey's first attempt. The bid was further boosted when Istanbul successfully hosted the 2012 World Indoor Athletics Championships. However, hopes were scuppered following protests taking place in Istanbul just 3 months before voting, and despite reaching the runoff final versus Tokyo, they fell to the Japanese capital by 60 votes to 36. For now though, we venture back over to Turkey's other dream, which was to host the European Championships. 2020 was the next hope for the nation. However, when UEFA announced its decision to host a multi-city, multi-country Euros with no sole host, those plans were put on the back burner. Turkey had been seen as the favourites to host the final of Euro 2020, but pulled out when they realised it may jeopardise their attempts to host a future competition. I think this really showed Turkey's dedication towards hosting the European Championships. They had the final in their grasp, but chose to give it all up. Instead, they turned towards Euro 2024, where they only had one competitor in Germany. There was also optimism in the fact that Germany hadn't long hosted a major tournament as they hosted the World Cup in 2006. But ultimately, this didn't work in their favour. Deutschland won a commanding majority at the vote by 12 votes to 4. It had now been a quarter of a century since Turkey first started trying to host these major events. They'd hosted a few smaller, minor events, but not the ones they were really after. For Euro 2028 and Euro 2032, Turkey staked their intentions once again. A UK and Ireland bid for 2028 was seen as the front runner, whilst Italy was unsure whether to try for 2028 or 2032. The longer this process went on, it seemed more and more likely that the UK and Ireland would win the 2028 vote, and therefore both nations pushed their bids to 2032. However, this is where we finally reach a breakthrough. On the 4th of October 2023, Turkey and Italy jointly announced their intentions to merge their bids together, leaving them unopposed in the race for Euro 2032, and just under a week later, UEFA confirmed. After years of searching for sites, developing infrastructure, overcoming adversity, fighting against controversy, Turkey's quest to bring the world to their back garden has been successful. It's now on them to make an event they can be proud of. At the present moment, the 2032 European Championships seem a long way away. We have 2 tournaments in the meantime and over 8 years until a ball is kicked, but preparations will already be underway to make the tournament a successful one. Not least that Turkey didn't spend all this time and money in pursuit, only to blow it when finally afforded the chance. And success here may springboard to other interests too. There have been 3 confirmed bids for the 2036 Summer Olympics, and of course Istanbul is one of them. This opportunity with Euro 2032, as well as their likelihood to host the 2027 European Games, is bound to put them in the driving seat. They will need to ensure that these events are handled diligently though, and for now that remains to be seen. But what we can focus on for now is the perseverance shown by Turkey in both time and money has proven to be a fruitful one. The hopes and dreams of a nation have been realised, and supporters will be travelling in their droves to experience the country where the continents meet, where East meets West. It should be seen as a lesson for all of us to keep going, to roll with the punches and come out swinging. Not only that, but also to keep believing. Football is a global game. Sports as a whole are for everyone, and with a bit of ingenuity, vision, determination, money and a bit of luck, it might just turn up in your back garden one day soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like and a subscribe if you wish to, and I'll see you in the next one.